Hey, there we go. I'm hearing myself an echo. I can now turn off. Mute. There we go.
Yep.
Mute me.
Well, without further ado, hi, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Lauren.
And we are Glib Shark. Today, we are rejoined by the lovely, the talented, the amazing Obo Crazy, who did something lovely, amazing, and talented this last weekend. And she is going to be here to talk all about it. In fact, she is even giving up her This Week in Geek slot to do nothing but talk about the stream of Annihilation.
Thing.
So, as always, we have the lovely, the talented, the amazing Obo Crazy here to do a little something we call the stream of Annihilation. How you doing, Obo?
I'm exhausted and happy. And yes, I guess technically this is going to be you asking me a lot of questions about the one This Week in Geek thing, which is the stream that I was on, that I was lucky enough to participate in. So, I mean, do we need to tell people what it was?
Let's start off with that. So, just what is the stream of Annihilation?
Well, to try to simplify it, Wizards of the Coast invited a whole bunch of D&D people in general out to Seattle and put on 2 days of live streaming for 12 hours each, partially as a way of getting a whole bunch of all these streaming groups and D&D people together in one place to chat over what's been going on this last year or two, but also as a way to promote their upcoming products, most notably the next storyline that they're coming out with. And I was lucky enough, thanks to the Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks that I run, thanks to the live charity events that we put on at RTX, and thanks to chatting with Greg Tito and Shelly Mazanoble on Dragon Talk, to be one of the people that was invited out and paid to come out there and participate in this whole grand adventure. So for 12 hours on Friday, June 2nd and Saturday, June 3rd, there were a couple dozen people from all kinds of mostly streaming groups and actual Wizards of the Coast employees. And then just a lot, like, I don't want to, I mean, the easiest catch-all would be random D&D people, but I don't mean that to sound derogatory. Like, it includes me. I wasn't there with a group to play with. Like, unfortunately, I didn't have you guys with me. So it was just me. But there was also some other, solo acts. Like Matt Koval was there, who does an amazing YouTube. He's probably most known in the D&D community as for the YouTube video series that he does called Running the Game, which is specifically for people who want to be dungeon masters. Because as he puts it, there's always people who want to play, but not everybody wants to be a dungeon master, but you can't play without a dungeon master. So he put out a huge grouping of videos that's all about running the game. And they're excellent. I highly recommend them. God, who else was there? There were some notable actors who were there who just happened to be, quote unquote, famous people who also happen to like D&D. Joe Manganiello is probably one of the biggest ones, as we've already seen him play D&D. He's going to be showing up in Force Grey Season 2. He did a one-shot on, I want to believe it was the Alpha stream. So he was there and he played a bit. Dylan Sprouse was there, who's also been on a bunch of D&D stuff and is just an actor.
Real quick interruption. I did not know who Darren Sprouse was, and later on, Dylan Sprouse. Sorry. And later on, I was watching it in the living room, and my wife walks by and is like, "Is that one of the Sprouse twins?" And I'm like, "Who the fuck are the Sprouse twins?" It's like, they were on like The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. They've done all this other stuff. They were pretty famous child actors, and I'm like, blink, 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 blink. And apparently, Dylan's brother is Jughead on the new I keep wanting to say Riverdale series on the CW.
Yes.
Well, Dylan is a brewer in New York, if I'm not mistaken, as well as being a giant D&D nerd.
Yeah, he's an actor, a brewer. He also does he actually does have a Twitch stream called Pug Crawl that is very funny. But yeah, he was there. He didn't have his group there, so he was just kind of groupless, as it were, like me. You had Abraham Ben-Ruby and Matthew Lillard, who are once again just incredibly famous, well-seasoned actors who also happen to be old school, longtime D&D fans. And there was a whole bunch of the Critical Role people who were there. The whole group couldn't come. In fact, even the couple of Critical Role people who could come were only there for 16 hours at most. Most of them arrived Friday noonish and then had to leave by Saturday because they were doing Critical Role until late Thursday night. Adam Coble was there, who is very well known in the D&D community. He's the head GM for Roll20, which is the thing that Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks uses when we play our games together, and DMs all over the place on live streams. So there were a lot of these individuals who either do have a group, or they that couldn't come, or they don't necessarily have a group because they don't stream, but they do other things. And then the Wizards invited these set groups out to not only join in the fun, but to also perform. Essentially, it's performing for everybody. And a lot of these groups are going on to continue a adventure that has been custom made with the new adventure in mind that Wizards is going to be putting out. That includes Acquisitions Incorporated, the C team that Jerry Holkins has been running. High Rollers is a group that's based out of the Yogscast in England with Mark Holmes as the DM. Dragon Friends, which is a group of Australian stand-up comics and actors who they were actually of all the people there who produce D&D games for public consumption in a variety of forms, the vast majority of people who were there do it through Twitch or YouTube. They live stream, or at least they videotape. And Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks and Dragon Friends are actually two of the only groups that put out only a podcast, although Dragon Friends will be changing. They're going to continue to do their podcast, which is once a month. They go perform. They essentially record it at a comedy club. They perform on stage live their D&D game.
So they get to do a RTX live game essentially weekly, or however often they do it.
Kind of. So their regular game, though, and the thing that they were doing before they came on the Stream of Annihilation was once a month they'd perform at a comedy club, and essentially, so it was a live audience watching them play at a comedy club that they would normally do stand up at. They'd record it and put it out as an audio only podcast, and that was once a month. They're going to continue to do that, but now they're also going to be doing a more, I guess the word I would use is traditional, even though there's no traditions really in live streaming D&D games. But when you look at all these other groups that are doing this, most of them are doing Twitch streams.
Right.
And so they're also going to be now putting out a more quote unquote traditional weekly D&D stream that is the way they put it is that those two games are going to run concurrently, and they'll be tied together in subtle ways, but you won't have to have listen to one, and you won't have to pay attention to both. So right now, Dragon Friends is in its third season. Yes, it's in its third season. The first season was kind of a very traditional Sword Coast run game. Second season, they actually did a Ravenloft campaign. Mm-hmm. They essentially ran from Curse of Strahd, but if you ever listen to it, it's a very loose kind of thing. And the third season is basically Shadowrun. All the characters got transported into Shadowrun-ish future. They're in Sydney, Australia, with high rises in the near future with crazy techno magic and all kinds of stuff. And then what they're running for Wizards are the same characters except in this new setting. And it's going to be interesting to see that all come together.
Well, let's for a second, let's go ahead and talk about that new setting, because the whole stream of Annihilation, you said it was to promote some products, and I think real quick we can list some of the other stuff that was promoted. I know they're coming out with a couple of different books. I forget what they're called, but let me look that up here. They also have Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, which I am pretty excited about, which is a D&D based board game.
Yeah, so it's Betrayal in House of the Hill, except at Baldur's Gate.
Yes,
is the quickest way of explaining it. I will say I actually got a chance. I didn't get a chance to play it because Betrayal in House of the Hill, Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, but the Betrayal board game series, they can take like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it was hard to like pull yourself away from everything going on for more than just like 30, 45 minutes. But I was... I kind of dug through everything. When they brought the box on Saturday, we all kind of attacked it and opened it up and looked through it. So yeah. I can say it's a gorgeous looking game. It is the actual physical game board, all the tiles and everything is wonderfully detailed. And the people, when they broke it out to go play it, I had to leave and go to get ready for the game, one of the games that I was going to be in. And the overwhelming consensus was that it was a ton of fun. So there's that. Probably the main reason for the stream is the next campaign, which is literally the Tomb of Annihilation. Right. And if you're an old school D&D person like me, you probably already have an idea of what this is based on. And it is this massive adventure that is going to be taking place in Chult, which is far to the south of the Sword Coast, in kind of this, it's in a giant rainforest. It's got all kinds of new characters and monsters. It's a lot like... So Storm King's Thunder was the last massive adventure that they came out with. Right. And it not only has one kind of main overarching through line of a plot, but it also just has a ton of content in there that if you're the kind of DM that is looking for an adventure that you can run your party through that could possibly take months or even a year or more, Storm King's Thunder is definitely one of them. And it looks like Tomb of Annihilation is going to be the same thing. It has so much extra content. They're officially saying that it is an adventure for levels 1 to 11. So literally you can start at level 1 and by the end of it, assumably be by level 11, which is a lot of content. So that was the big announcement. And then they also announced the Xander book. Shit, I've lost the name of the book.
Yeah, that's what been trying to look for, like the Book of Many Things or something like that.
Yeah, they're putting out I'm actually, in a weird way, the most excited about this, even though technically it's kind of a lot of stuff they've already put out. So for the last couple of years, they've been regularly posting what they call Unearthed Arcana. And if you've been listening to D&D, you know...
Zandahar's Guide to Everything.
Thank you. Excellent. So if you've been listening to D&D, you're probably at least vaguely familiar with Unearthed Arcana, because what a lot of the Unearthed Arcana that they've been posting has been either updates to current characters or race. It's mostly character classes, or more options for character classes. And one of the very first things that they put out was an update to the Ranger. Totally revamped it. Modified a lot of the stats and the powers and everything in it. And it very quickly after it came out, we decided the Jenga, who plays Travancore, who plays a ranger, decided to switch to that build. Even though it was supposed to be quote unquote playtest material, we felt like it was such an upgrade for that character class that it was worth taking it on. So there's been a ton of that. It's mostly been new options, new subclasses, new abilities, new spells, all put out on PDFs on the Wizards of the Coast website. And now that it's been this giant collection of stuff that they've put out there and play tested and gotten feedback on, they have done the final revisions on these character classes and on these everything that they're putting in there, and they're releasing an official book that includes all of this content. So the caveats you got before with all of the Unearthed Arcana stuff was that because it wasn't thoroughly play tested, there was still the possibility that it was unbalanced, and you weren't supposed to be allowed to use it either in Adventurers League content or be able to multi-class with it. And so now that it's going to be put out as an official product, a finalized, balanced version, not only will everyone get a chance to take a look at these things, but also now it'll be ripe for multiclassing and all this kinds of stuff. And there's going to be a ton of also new stuff in there that they've talked about, but even just collecting all the Unearthed Arcana that they've put out there into these finalized classes, I'm super excited about to have that in one place. So, and then there were a lot of I don't want to say smaller announcements, but those were kind of the main product announcements from Wizards of the Coast. There was also the announcements of all of these already groups of streamers who are creating new content based on Tomb of Annihilation that will be streamed on the Wizards D&D stream Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/DND, which was where you could actually see the stream of Annihilation. So
and it's where you can, if you missed any part of it, especially the stuff that the lovely, the talented, and the amazing Obo Crazy was on, you can go back and watch that right now. And they actually have it pretty well divided for anything you want to see. Like, let's say for some reason you hate Obo Crazy. I don't know why you would, because that's
why would
just
you be
nuts.
listening to us right now?
Exactly. But if you wanted to say go and see the High Rollers one shot, or the Acquisition Incorporated C Team one shot, or you wanted to see one of the Maze Arcana games, you could go do that, and it is very nice. And they actually did that pretty soon after, because I have a confession. I was playing D&D on Friday night during one of your streams.
That's okay.
I didn't get to really pay attention. I had it on, but it was one of those where I was trying to listen to two different things. And I finished your game the next morning, and I'm very glad I did, because I fucking loved Bangarang.
Well, okay, before we dive into the two games that I played in, I will say that I highly, highly recommend you go and watch any of the games that took place over the course of those 2 days. You're right that it was split up rather well. Basically, for the 12 hours of streaming, it went back and forth between an hour and a half of a D&D game and then a half an hour of news announcements and interviews. And that just cycled back and forth and back and forth. So they did a very good job of splitting those up. So if you go to the Twitch channel, if you go to Wizards Twitch channel, you can find, here's the game, here's all these news and announcements. A lot of the people who were playing were then almost immediately brought up to then do interviews. So if you're super interested in High Rollers, you can both watch their game and then see the interview with them afterwards. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend watching any of those games. And as someone who participated on both days, because of the fact that, like, before each of our games there was some prep, they had hair and makeup for us, which made me so happy.
When you mentioned that there was like, oh yeah, I just came out of makeup, I'm like, oh right, that makes sense. And even then you could see on some people that the hot lights and just the environment was still really, it looked hot.
You know, I think everybody had a different reaction to it. I personally was okay. I personally felt comfortable, and both days when they did my makeup, I was super happy with how I looked. You
looked gorgeous, darling.
well, thank you. The professionals they had there, I requested, I just want to look natural, and I let them do their work. And in both cases, I'm pretty happy that I do not look like a 14-year-old girl in either stream, which makes me happy.
You know what? And Satine Phoenix has her look, and it's a great look, but it's not for everyone. So
no.
Yeah.
No, and she pulls it off with aplomb. And, but I certainly understand that I have a couple of advantages in both of those days. One, I was, and simply, as some of this is I'm a woman, some of this is just because of how just how my body works. I was wearing I was wearing t-shirts and jeans most of the time. So it wasn't like I was in layers either of those days. I was relatively comfortable the whole time. I have a full head of hair, which helps when you're sitting under hot lights. I don't have to worry about the top of my head or my forehead shiny. Or a lot of the men that were there either had very short haircuts or, were bald like Jerry. And that is tough to deal with. It's one thing to have to deal with.
You mean Abraham Ben Ruby?
No, I also kind of do mean like Jerry.
Jerry Holkins. Right.
Jerry yeah.
Okay, and so I have to explain myself because while I was in the chat for the game you were in with both Adam Ben Ruby and Matthew Lillard, one of the funniest comments there was one exchange that went something along the lines of, this commenter says, "That dude in the middle looks a lot like Shaggy." And then the next three responses were like, "That dude is Shaggy." And he's like, "Oh my God." And the other comment that tickled me a bunch was everyone calling Abraham Ben Ruby Jerry from ER.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can imagine that. Jack and I had said, he is definitely from, at least for me and for Jack, he is Kubiak from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. And he's been in a fuck ton of stuff. Random Abraham Ben Ruby role for me. Random guard who gets unceremoniously killed in the shadow.
See, now I recognized him when they announced him. I was just like, okay, I recognize him. Parker Lewis Can't Lose was not a huge fan of. It's been forever. The thing for me is I knew him from Robot Chicken.
Yep.
He has been a voice on Robot Chicken for forever. And then, so the funny thing is, okay, so wait, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to those specific things. So I started by saying, definitely watch all of these games. And that, so not only did I have a couple of advantages with being able to wear just t-shirt and jeans and having a full head of hair, and women are a little more able to wear more makeup than men. So it was a little easier to prep me so that in an hour and a half, I didn't get shiny. And I know my body's reaction to being under stress. Everyone on this stream is a performer in some fashion. But I'm lucky in that my body's reaction to stress, either when playing oboe or playing D&D, which I've talked about before, is I actually react, my body sweats in different ways. It doesn't tend to be a face thing. And so I put a ton of deodorant in the appropriate places, and I was okay. The other issue is that because of the speed of these games, an hour and a half sounds like a long time, but that is an incredibly short amount of time for
fast
D&D.
For a D&D game.
Like, even for me, who's used to running 2-hour games, that's a short amount of time, especially for both groups that I was in had a lot of players. Because of that, games were moving super quick. DMs were being very good about keeping things moving and entertaining. There was no time for a quick, I need to pat down your face for makeup. So if someone was a little shiny or a little sweaty because there were hot lights, or that's just what they were doing because they were excited or sweaty, that's it. That's all you could do. So I hope everyone's a little forgiving. But anyway, definitely watch all of the groups. I've personally been catching up on a bunch of them because I didn't really get a chance to see very much while I was participating in it. The green room that we all got to hang out in when we weren't live on stream or needed to be somewhere was wonderful, and they always had food and drink and plenty of games and swag, and that's where a lot of us just basically hung out all day both days. They had a giant TV set up with the stream going, but the audio was intentionally kept fairly low because most of us kind of wanted to be talking to each other and get this chance to so to basically either have fun together or to commiserate with each other or to find out, oh, so you're doing this with your stream and that with your stream and how you doing this. It was like part business meeting, part convention. And the assumption was if you wanted to actually watch whatever game was on stream at that moment, you just walked over and you stood watching it. Like, it was very easy to do that. And I did that a bunch just to grab as much as I could. All right. So do we want to talk about the 2 games I was in?
Absolutely. I want to hear we'll start with the first one you were in, which was One Grung Below.
Yes. So Chris Lindsay is a designer at Wizards of the Coast. He runs the Adventures League. He helps run the DMs Guild and is a writer and is an amazing DM. And so the stream included pre-made groups, as in like, oh, here's Acquisitions Incorporated, here's Maze Arcana, here's Dice Camera Action. And maybe some of those groups had a special guest or two, but in general, it was, here is this group that you're used to seeing just in a different location. And then they also put these, I'm trying to remember, like, until they finalized the schedule, they were calling them like super groups, which were basically these groups of people, a lot of them like me, who were not there with a preset group and were thrown together. And the specific thing there were a couple of specific things, but the main overarching theme of the Grung game that I was in is that everybody at that table is a DM. Not everybody who was at the stream of Annihilation has DM'd before. There were a lot of wonderful players who have not DM'd or don't do DMing on screen. Everyone in that group actively is currently a DM doing something on stream or something.
And I gotta say, that was an amazing chemistry. Like especially like Humes, I think, because he was a lowly grunt, kind of got left behind.
Oh, really?
I think so. Initially in the stream. Now, you were in a great position because I feel like you had the blip, the bleep, the bloop, and who was the last one?
Blop.
Blip,
bleep, bloop, and blop.
They were the green. So let's explain what that means real quick, just in terms of Grung.
Yeah. So I'll back up a little bit. So we were all DMs, which helps. We're all DMs who DM a current group that is putting out a podcast, a live stream. Even Matt Colville, who is probably the only one of that group who isn't putting out like a weekly stream. He on a regular basis puts out his game and is streaming it. And it's Chris Lindsay put together a game in where the entire party is made up of the same race. We're all grungs. And if you don't know what a grung is, get yourself Volo's Guide to Monsters. They're basically frogs. They're tiny little frogs. They're frogmen. They're frogmen. They are a monster in Volo's Guide to Monsters. They're not currently an official playable race, but one of the things in Volo's Guide is, along with some actual playable races, is literally instructions on how to turn any monster into a playable race. And Chris Lindsay kind of knows what he's doing, being from Wizards. So he created an adventure in where the entire party is grung. Now, grungs are a stratified society. They are a caste system based on the color grung that you are. So the lowest, and you probably got most of this if you watched the game. This was all explained to us before the game, so we kind of had an idea to how we were to play off of this. But there's green grung, who are basically grunts. They're the lowest caste. They are scouts. They are the frontline men. They are the expendable ones. Then there's purple, who are essentially middle management. They lead teams of the green grung, but are they're basically just a one step up. And then you have the orange, which are and then it kind of just keeps on going up. There's orange, red, gold. And the higher color you are, the more important you are, the more power you have, the more influence you have. The other half of that is that if you are too many steps away from a caste, so if you're, say, a red grung, like Satine Phoenix was playing, you would not ever deign to even speak to a green. And a green, like, say, what Mark Holmes was playing, would not be allowed to talk to a red. So in the game that we were playing, there were 4 greens played by Colville, Holmes, Coble, and Rudy Rutenberg were those 4 gentlemen playing the greens. You had me playing the only purple. You had, I've just lost her name. This wonderful woman from Miss Clicks who's playing the orange, and Satine Phoenix playing the red. So there were a bunch of preset reasons why that game worked really well, despite the fact that none of us have ever played together. One, we're all DMs who've performed in front of a camera. So we are all super comfortable with playing D&D while other people are watching. And because we're all DMs, I think, and it's not that players don't do this. I mean, good players like the 4 of you in my game are not just wonderful role players, but also really good at kind of understanding the dynamic of the group really quickly, enough improv skill to be able to just roll with whatever is going on, with enough understanding about how the game is going to know when to have fun, about when to push, about when to just, go crazy, about when it's like, all right, I need to actually like do whatever in the plot. But then also because it was all DMs, because we've all had to run games that include this variety of characters and races and classes, even though we were playing level 5 characters out of a race that none of us knew with very little information to begin with, you didn't really get that. Like, we knew what we were doing. I know how to run a roguish character with a couple of weird powers. Satine knows how to run a monk. We're all familiar enough with those classical art, with those classes and those characters to be able to run them without a lot of, what am I looking for? What's my modifier? So, and then Chris Lindsay created this essentially perfect way to prevent all 7 of us, 7 of us, from accidentally stepping over each other, because there were whole groups of people who couldn't talk to whole other groups of the people. So when you mentioned that,
so that's what was going on. I kind of figured, but
yeah, I think at one point Chris Lindsay mentioned that, but it might have been super quick in passing. So you're absolutely right when you're like, I was in the most advantageous position. Chris Lindsay actually warned me about that ahead of time, because my position is literally the purple grung was literally the linchpin of that whole group. The greens could talk to only other greens or me, and they would take orders from me. The 2 above me, the red and the orange, were giving me orders and could talk to me, and I could talk to them, but I was the only one who could talk to everybody. I was accepting orders from some people or asking questions and then giving orders to other people. So that's why a lot of the time, if the greens were like, well, we need light, and none of us have torches, none of us have anything that can, all the greens and the purple that I was playing were all rogues of various types. And then I just had an extra power or 2. And then the ones that were above me were different classes. So when the greens came to me and were like, we need light, and I didn't have any way of giving them light, I then had to troop on over to the woman playing the orange and be like, yeah, we need some light. And then she was supposed to go to the red and be like, yeah, they need some light. So it was basically a study in really crappy corporate management.
And the consequence of which you were the one talking the most, since you could talk to both deals. And that was awesome, because as much as I love Mark Humes and I love what he does on High Rollers, I was there to watch you. And I feel like in that first game, I definitely got the most bangarang for my oboe crazy buck.
And we'll talk about the second game in a minute. I 100% agree with that. I feel like this other game that I played in was a little more balanced in all of us getting a chance to have moments. And yes, by far, I talked a lot more in the first game. The interesting dynamic that came out immediately was that part of it was what Matt Colville was doing, which was kind of brilliant. And then what the four of them who were playing the Greens just kind of did as a group, even though
God.
they basically turned into like the Four Stooges. It was amazing.
When Roll20 dude went, oh, yeah, I hear you, comrade, and they threatened to unionize the Greens, that was amazing.
Yeah, Adam Coble just decided that he was going to be the most... like, I almost expected him to speak with a cliche French accent. And yeah, all of his stuff was about fighting against the bourgeoisie. And, you know, like, he was the most aware of the corporate management structure and just dismissive. And then you had Humes and Rudy, who were basically playing... I mean, Mark Humes said it at one point that he was kind of like Drax, except with a little more intelligence.
Right.
And Rudy was playing kind of this weird feral grung.
He was, his little frog noises were pretty
amazing.
Great.
They were amazing. And then Colville was playing the dumbass. He was just playing the guy who he literally played the guy that usually other party members hate and often the DM hates, which is the guy that just runs forward into everything.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know anyone like that.
No one knows anything like that.
Shut up, Lori.
The fun thing about
you,
that dynamic, they locked into that super fast. Like, none of that was planned as far as I know. Like, we only got our character sheets. A couple of us got our character sheets earlier in the day and like did a little bit of chatting about, oh, should we put on a silly voice or stuff like that? But we didn't really make too many character choices. Like, all of what you saw kind of came out at the table. What that meant was kind of beautiful because it made my role playing choices incredibly easy. My job was to be the straight man. My job was to be middle management. I was to be the long-suffering middle management straight person. I think I maybe got a joke off here or there, but that was mostly out of character because for their comedy to work, I needed to be straight person. So actually the only people I felt bad for were the other two ladies because they could only talk to each other or me. They couldn't interact with the Greens at all. And they weren't, because of that, they really didn't have a chance to speak that much. Now, a little that they got was brilliant, but...
and for Satine's case, I think she's okay because she did play... and I did not realize her name was this pun, but Dakiton?
Yeah.
It's Donkey Kong?
Yeah, all of the names of all these characters were references to something else.
And
or just
she punched stuff? Yeah. So she was not only the leader grung, but she was also, if I'm not mistaken, the captain of the ship in your other stream.
Yes. Okay. She got a chance. She played a lot. A bunch. Her and Rudy are both from Base Arcana, and they do several live streams, and they played in a bunch. So yeah, all of us had a chance to play, except for Matt Colville. He was the only one who didn't get a chance to play on a different stream. He was supposed to, and then he ended up having to leave. So yeah, it was okay because there was a natural give and flow, and none of us felt like once again, I think partially because we're DMs and partially because we're all streamers, no one was trying to take the spotlight. No one was like, I'm going to take over this game. It just, as in the first 10 minutes, these characters evolved enough that we were able to do an hour and a half worth of awesome role play, and where everything lied, everyone was just like, all right, well, I'm going to do what makes sense for my character. Yep. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was, I thought, Chris Lindsay did an excellent job of herding us cats, because certainly Bangarang did a very awful job of herding her cats. That's for sure.
I think she did fine. With the tools that she was given, the 4 idiots and the uncaring management, I think she did great.
Well, I am. The one moment I'm proudest of was the out of character moment in where I came up with the idea that Kermit was our god.
Oh my God! By Kermit's grace.
Yes, that still makes me super happy, and that will be the one. So it's funny because they put out a video on YouTube that is they actually call it a day one highlight reel, and I think it's only like 2.5 minutes. So it's tiny little snippets of each of the games that happened that day. And I'm super fortunate to be in the highlight reel, but they put me in saying something else, and then one of the other characters got a chance to deliver the Kermit line, and I don't mind it simply because from a standalone, I need to pull a clip that's going to be funny. It worked better because when I said Kermit, I had a couple of words after that, and everyone else was immediately on top of Kermit, so that everyone's kind of talking at once for just the briefest of moments. So she got a chance to deliver a really funny Kermit line by herself.
Yes, I was that tickled me so much that now, at least in the Stream of Annihilation realm, Kermit was canon as Grung God.
Oh yeah, and I can tell you this. If and when the Grung ever show up in any of my games, Kermit's their god.
Nice. So speaking of crossover, because Kermit references did show up in other games, like your game with Maze Arcana.
Yes. So Maze Arcana, they are they put out several D&D streams, and Rudy and Satine do a ton of work, and the rest of their crew. So this was one of those games in where this was not part of their normal canon. They did do a Maze Arcana game that's here's game 1 of an ongoing series we're going to do. This one was essentially, I think it's safe to say this, it was a prequel to events that are happening in the campaign. So it was a standalone one-shot. And that's the game that included Abraham Ben Ruby, and that one was a little bit easier to, as I said, I think everybody had a bit more of a chance to shine and have a moment to each other. And that one, definitely, there was a lot more backstory involved. Those characters were incredibly well fleshed out for us. Rudy came up with, it was crazy the amount of stuff that I had on my character sheet, the level of detail. This was a character sheet I would expect out of somebody who had been playing for 7-8 months to get their character up to, I think they were level 5, either level 5 or level 6 characters. So, which was a rich backstory. One of my few regrets from that game is that none of us really could have mined everything that was in our character.
Right. Like you said,
it was impossible.
There was such a short amount of time that you really no one had any opportunities to faff about much, at least to get the kind of interaction that you maybe get with a Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks or just about any game. And I know that some of the bigger games I play in are sort of like that, where there are so many people that you really just have to power through, and I think you lose a little bit of that, but when you do have those opportunities to kind of make your character more than just the meat shield, that's so great. And that I think if I had to criticize anything, it would be that you did not get the chance to do that with really any of the characters. But I did like what we got. I mean, I understand the constraints.
Oh yeah, and of the two games that I played, the Grung game, I think it was very obvious from the stream. While it had a quote unquote ending, it definitely ended on a cliffhanger, and there's a lot more. Like Christopher Lindsay wrote a ton more that could have happened, but that game, it wasn't at all necessary to like. It had a decent ending, like it ended, and yeah, it's kind of a cliffhanger, but whatever. Like the purpose of that game was more the experience of watching a bunch of DM streamers play together in this crazy game about frogs. The Maze Arcana game was a standalone one shot that had a specific purpose in mind that I think people who watch the game, and I won't give anything away if you haven't seen it, it's obvious that there was a build up to a very specific ending. And that's much more difficult because being the DM of a game in where you have to get to a specific ending and nobody else knows because the players obviously don't know. And what's the one thing that happens in Dungeons and Dragons? Well, the players screw everything up and go off in random directions and do things that are not part of the plan. And in a regular D&D game, or even in a D&D stream, you adapt and you deal with it and you throw other things at them. And then, maybe the set thing that you had in mind as the end goal gets moved, shuffled, changed, or just pushed back.
Right.
And it's seamless. Well, when you only have an hour and a half and you have to get to that end point, it can get rough. That game was intense but also like a ton of fun. As I said, that one was one of the ones where I feel like we all got a chance to really give each other a moment or two. I had a chance to play with Nathan Stewart, who is in charge of D&D. I mean, all of the Wizards of the Coast people that are there were amazing and influential in different ways. But Nathan Stewart is in charge of Dungeons and Dragons. He's the guy in charge. Which is why if you watch the stream, there's a couple of times where he's like, I get to roll this with advantage, right? And what's Rudy supposed to say? No, Mr. I run D&D.
He's supposed to croak.
I know.
Which is the implication that you may roll with advantage.
Yeah, it was very funny. It was the 2 minutes before the game went live, as everybody was like, some of the character interaction had been figured out, like Abraham Ben Ruby and Matthew Willard being brothers.
Right.
And a couple of the characters having these kind of love interest things going on. And then 2 minutes beforehand, as I think actually the two playing brothers, they had already decided that they were going to do this very old school British adventurer, brother, I'm going to be going, that kind of thing, like you'd expect from an old 1930s, serial adventure kind of thing, like very almost racist cliche British man going off into the wilderness to go hunt stuff. So they're putting on this British voice, and Mark Holmes, he says, well, if you guys are going to do that as the one Brit at the table, I should put on my horrible, horrible American accent.
Absolutely. And he did.
And he did, which was a pretty good Texan, I'll say. Like he was just like, it's horrible. And I'm like, yeah, it's not too bad.
Not as bad as you think.
No, definitely not. Better than a lot of not classically trained actors. So anyway, basically that made the decision for almost everybody. Well, the rest of us have to be British now. We all have to be British so that he can be the one. So that was a lot of fun to be able to pull out my super bad British and be super bad British next to an actual British man. Yeah. And I was the moment that I'm most proud of personally was the moment that I got to attack with my wrench that was my maul.
That was awesome.
Yeah, because the character I was playing as is the cook/engineer, and I didn't get a chance to do much of the engineer stuff except for kind of that one moment. I actually had other things planned, and then the game had to end. But yeah, in that moment, I was able to pull that out, and that was kind of a fun, epic moment. I really enjoyed that. Um, yeah, and those people are hysterically funny. I had an epic death,
You did?
which, you know what? If you're gonna die in a D&D game, falling into the mouth of a zombie T-Rex, not a bad way to go. I'm pretty proud of that.
This zombie T-Rex had been talked about so much over the weekend, and it was one of the first things that was mentioned when it was revealed what the Stream of Annihilation was about. And they were talking about Chult and the kind of monsters you run in there. And the whole storyline of all of a sudden undead are rising, and also people who have been brought back by magical means through good divine magic are now starting to rot away. And that's weird. But one of the things that they hit on was this zombie T-Rex that spits out zombies.
Yep.
So I feel like it was sort of Chekhov's zombie T-Rex that spits out zombies. And at some point, a character was going to get eaten by one. I'm glad it was you.
Yeah. Nope. I fully accept being gnawed on by a zombie T-Rex. It was also a surprise when he slammed that giant T-Rex. You can't call that a mini.
No, that was a toy. That was a goddamn toy.
It was huge. And he came from behind me when he put that thing down on the table. He legitimately surprised me. I think, I don't think it actually shows up on the stream. I haven't been able to watch that one fully. I've just kind of skimmed through it just to see, just how everything looked. So I don't think it actually shows me very much, but I think I spent a whole 30 seconds just jaw open going, ah. And then like in my head, after I kind of got over giant T-Rex, I was super happy because one of the only other things that I didn't get to do, which I was super excited about doing, there was a bunch of zombies everywhere and there's a zombie T-Rex and I'm a cleric. Guess what I was going to do? I was super excited about doing a massive turn undead because I haven't turned undead in forever. But that's okay. You know what? It all worked out. So yeah, 2 super fun games. I think if I had a choice, I'd say the Grung one is probably my favorite of the 2, mostly because of how unique that game was and how well everything came together. And I just there was afterwards we were chatting and I was like, that to make a music metaphor, I feel like someone who has had a chance to play my oboe in some really good groups of, amazing players who are all individually wonderful. And then today I got a chance to play with the London Symphony. Like, that's kind of what it felt like, was just, kind of a perfect storm. It's that all of us had the perfect skill set to just sit down at a table in front of thousands of people, having barely any information about what we were doing, having never played with one another. And it was the closest thing to actual jazz that's what I get out of D&D is what happened at that table. And it gelled really, really well. So we've only got a couple minutes left. And now that I've prattled on for almost an hour, did you have any questions?
No, let me check the stream real quick to see if anyone had any questions for us there. I will say real quick that I did get to see Wonder Woman this last week. It was wonderful. Go see it. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. The first act is a bit slow, but it pays the fuck off. So definitely go check that out.
I am excited. Hopefully this weekend, Luke and I will go.
I don't see any questions, but that's okay. I do see you viewers. Thank you so much for checking us out.
We've got Calamity Jane is in there, basically also saying that she's looking forward to all of the Unearthed Arcana stuff that has been coming out.
Yeah, that's going to be neat. I've been looking. So I need to stop making characters because there's no way that even putting some of my myriad of cleric ideas into my local game, I'm just not going to be able to use them all. But today I'm talking with a friend and we are talking about two characters that we would love to have in the same campaign, but that's probably not going to happen because, like you said, we need a dungeon master, and we're both tapped as far as our dungeon mastering and playing. So it's like, at some point, hopefully we'll get to this. But on mine, I think actually both characters were using Unearthed Arcana stuff. Me, the Store Barbarian, and her, the Knight. So that's hopefully something we can do, and that's in November. So that'll be a good Christmas present there.
There you go.
I will say that that Obo, I know we don't have much longer here, and I've said this in other venues, but I'm going to say it here because I don't think I've actually like expressed this vocally. I am so fucking proud of you. Not only did you get to participate in like basically D&D All-Stars. Let's not sugarcoat it. These were the who's who of D&D players. You got to participate and you did fucking awesome. And I am really humbled to be able to say, and I said this a lot in the chat on Twitch, that you are my DM, you are up there, and you are doing awesome. And
well, thank you.
It was a pleasure to watch you.
Well, I'll say, and I have said this plenty of times, a DM is only as good as her players. And if you guys weren't an absolute joy to DM for, then Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks wouldn't be nearly as good as it is. And I never would have gotten the chance to get invited to Dragon Talk, and none of this would have happened. So there is a question from... oh, shit. Someone put up a question, and then I closed that window. Are you still in the chat?
Hold on. I'm getting it.
Okay.
Let's see. Who was the most delightful surprise of a person to meet? From our very own Calamity Jane.
Oh, the delightful surprise. I mean, everyone there, that's one of the reasons that everything was so lovely and wonderful and I had such a great time, is everyone there was amazing. Everyone there was excited to be there, was excited to talk with other people. Some people got to be there more than others, and so I got a chance to talk to some more than others, but everybody was just absolutely wonderful. Okay, I'll mention a couple of people. So just in general, the Dragon Friends, I got a chance to talk with David Harmon, who is their DM, and also with Benny Davis, who is their live music. He's literally Benny Davis just live plays keyboard while they play.
He did a couple of others, right? I mean, I know he did the Uncharted. Well, he was the one that did the Uncharted Territory game, right? For High Rollers? Okay.
Yep. So High Rollers was right before Dragon Friends, and High Rollers is one of the other groups that uses music during their stream. And the way the story was told to me is that Benny was there making sure that the keyboard worked. And the keyboard, by the way, was provided by me by way of friends of the show, Mary and Chris McDowell, because it's their, yes. So without going into the backstory of all of that, it's their keyboard. I was the person who I asked a whole bunch of friends when it was like, oh, Dragon Friends are coming and Benny needs a keyboard and he doesn't want to bring his incredibly expensive Roland for reasons that should be obvious.
Right.
You're a musician. Can you help us find a keyboard? Of the multitude of people I asked, they had a keyboard and were able to spare it for a couple of days. And so I brought it to the studio and helped get it to Benny so that he could do that. And I think at one point, Greg Tito actually tweeted thanks to me and then to the gentleman who brought the amp. And I was just like, and also thanks to Sailor Tweak and Sir Narby. So anyway, yeah, so he was doing his sound check that happened after the High Rollers game. The High Rollers are used to having not live music, but they have just the same way that Matt Mercer runs music for Critical Role, that they do music during their stream, and basically said to him, "You're kind of awesome. Will you just do this for our game too?" And he went, "Yeah, sure." And he's an amazing musician and improver. And so for two different games ran music. So chatting with them was a lot of fun. They have such an interesting take on a live D&D game, and certainly talking with them about, and listening to them about the changes that they're having to think about turning their once a month podcast into a that's in front of a live audience into a essentially in studio video produced game. So chatting with them was awesome. They were tons of fun. I had a couple of brief moments to chat with Matt Mercer and separately Marisha Ray with a couple of other groups. They were unfortunately there so little amount of time, and it just because they had to. They couldn't get in until Friday mid morning. They had to leave pretty quickly Saturday, and a lot of the time that they were there, they were either in a game or being interviewed. So there was little time for them to be kind of hanging out back in the green room. Had a lot of fun chatting with them about just random D&D topics. Actually got spoiled a little bit because I didn't get a chance to watch Critical Role, the one that happened on Thursday. And Marisha, when I joined the conversation, Marisha was talking to a couple people about that episode.
Okay.
And that's okay. And that's fine. And then we got talking about some other things that had happened earlier, and then, branched out from there. But yeah, they were lovely. And despite the fact that I'm sure they were exhausted, they were just as excited and happy to be there as everybody else. I was super happy to talk to Matt Colville. I saw him Thursday night and got a chance to chat with him there was a little essentially pregame party, a meet and greet kind of thing that he was at. And it was the closest I actually came to being a fangirl, to be honest. Like, as much as I'm a huge fan of Critical Role, like, just because of the situation that happened in, and the short amount of time that I got to chat, it wasn't like a one-on-one conversation with Mercer or Marisha Ray. It was just kind of two or three of us all talking at the same time. That was much more of a kind of a natural, comfortable conversation. Matt Colville, a couple of us arrived not super early. The party started at 6, and there were some of us who arrived at 6 because there are some of us who would have arrived at 5:30 because we're dorks. So I approached him because I recognized him, and I am a fan of his YouTube. I've read his books. So I started with, just introducing myself, and we chatted for a while, and we chatted about a whole bunch of things. And then he started to explain what he does with his YouTube channel. And I think he thought that he had to explain who he was and why he was there. Like it felt like something that he was used to telling people about. And eventually I actually just interrupted him. I'm like, okay, this is the moment where I admit that I'm actually a fan of yours. I've watched all your videos. I use them. I recommend them to people to watch if they want to be a DM. I've supported you by buying your books and reading them. And I tried to be just as, matter of fact and calm about it as I could, just so he didn't feel like he had to justify. Like, it almost felt like he was trying to justify his existence at this event. And I wanted to reassure him that, like, no, I totally get why you're here. You're awesome. And I was feeling a little nervous about it until I said about the books, and he's like, oh, you bought my books. All right, well, you're awesome then. So that was cool. And he has some really amazing ideas about things that current games can do to kind of up their production level. And he obviously loves to run games different than what a lot of people like to watch. His games tend to be much more full of political intrigue and super complex plots that he's still kind of figuring out how to stream those. And so it was kind of fascinating to talk to him about, like, he was a little envious of me talking about how we play our game and it's recorded and I edit it, and how I was envious of him because he live streams his stuff, and it was kind of grass is green on the other side of the hill thing.
Right.
So yeah, he was super cool. I was super happy to be able to meet him. God, who else? Oh, one more person. So, oh shoot, I just lost his name. From Geek and Sundry, there was he's one of the, I've just totally lost his name. Oh my God. I'm going to have to look this up now. But he's one of the guys who works at Geek and Sundry. He's both on camera and he does stuff behind the scenes. He is, and he was there for like, I think he was only there for a day. I think he was only there, I want to say, for Friday. He didn't actually get a chance to be on any of the streams. I don't know if that was because he had to leave or if he didn't get scheduled or what, but he does a ton of stuff with Geek and Sundry. I'm going to friggin' look him up because not only did I have a wonderful couple of conversations with him, he then sat us down and a couple of us got a chance to play a game that isn't out yet. And it was the only non-D&D game I played that weekend. Oh, there we go. So it goes by the Twitter Hydra Lord, and his name is Ivan Van Norman. He is a host on Geek and Sundry, and he's a game designer and a storyteller and super passionate about all kinds of board games, not just D&D. And he had a copy of this game called Unearth, which, if you follow me on Twitter, I posted a picture of the group of us who got a chance to play, including the box art for this game. Mm-hmm. It's not released yet. I think it was backed. If I remember the story correctly, and I might be wrong, it was a Kickstarter thing that might just be now coming out in beta form. And he had one of the first copies of the game. And it's made by the same people who make Boss Monster, if you're familiar with that game.
Sadly, yes.
Oh, you're not a fan?
Not a fan.
Oh, I actually ended up buying that game for Chris McDowell for Sir Narvi for, I want to say, his birthday one year.
I actually played it with Dark 54555 at his house, and it was okay.
Yeah, but same game, same company made this game, same group of people. I'm not going to try to explain it because we're already 10 minutes over. Suffice it to say, we had a lot of fun. It was kind of the perfect game for that venue. It had enough depth to it, and
what kind of game was it?
How do I explain it? It was basically a point collecting game, and where there were multiple ways to earn points, and if you had the most points, you won. And the conceit of the game is that you are playing as a group of archaeologists. And before you are a whole bunch of ruins. And on those ruins are also these stones. And these stones will let you unlock certain other more powerful ruins. And the way that you go after, and they all have points associated with them. And the way you go after any of this is your group of archaeologists are represented by a bunch of dice. You have a couple D6s, a D4, a D8, and I think that's it. Yeah. And all the basic mechanic of the game is you roll a dice, and depending on what you're trying to do, you're looking for specific numbers. And
oh yeah, it's like Alien Frontiers.
I'm not familiar with that game, but
it's essentially it's a dice worker placement game, and it's a little bit different than other games where you roll dice like Kingsburg or To Court the King, where you want to try and roll high or at least get to certain advisors that you need. What's nice about games like that, where it's Castles of Burgundy or Alien Frontiers, is that even if you roll quote unquote crappy, it can still work for you depending on what the actual number is.
Yeah, and this really actually the only crappy rolls are middle rolls. So like some of the things that you're trying to do, you want to roll a 1, 2, or a 3. So obviously the D4 is the best of your advantage. Some of the things you want to roll high, so the D6 or the D8 is to the best of your advantage. There are other ways, and there's ways of manipulating the dice, and there's enough complexity, as I said, in where it was interesting, but not so much that we completed the whole thing in an hour, and that included Ivan giving us the tutorial. So easily this is like a good half hour, maybe 40 minutes worth of gameplay for 4 people, which was, as I said, kind of perfect. But yeah, getting a chance to chat with him and his wealth of production knowledge, especially with having worked with Geek and Sundry, and then his obvious enthusiasm for just, I mean, everybody was enthusiastic there and lovely and excited, but like everyone had their thing that they were the most excited about. And his was just in like the moment in where he said, "Are you interested in playing this game?" I said, "Yeah, sure. If you can teach it to me, absolutely." At like the smile on his face was I made him super happy that he got a chance to teach me and a couple of other people how to play this game. Like that's made him super happy. So yeah, it was meeting him. I think if you're taking surprise in the literalist sense of who is someone I had zero clue I was going to meet, had zero clue I was going to talk to, and yet had a wonderful experience with, I think he probably wins, because I didn't even know he was going to be there until I saw him across the room. And then I had just a lovely, wonderful, joyful time playing this game, getting taught how to play it. Oh, that was... and she's asked one more game.
Are you going to take 30 minutes to answer this one too?
No, because this is easy. Any plans, hopes to do D&D collaborations in a mega podcaster panel? No, not at the moment. The quick answer is no. The long answer is no, but I would love to, but at the moment, no. And
hopefully if you do get to do a mega panel, you bring your favorite Magimuscular wizard with you so that he can participate in D&D Avengers as well.
I think
I will fly anywhere.
Awesome. I think it would be awesome to either bring you guys somewhere to do a mega thing, or to bring a guest on to Dungeon Drunks. I think of all of the groups there, Dungeon Drunks is, I'm gonna admit it, we're a smaller group.
We're the littlest fish in that pond.
I don't think we were the littlest fish.
Really?
However, we were no. But that's okay. That the point of being there was not who's the big fish, who's the littlest fish.
We like when Critical Role and Maze Arcana and High Roller show up, it's pretty obvious. And Misclicks and Dice Camera Action and C Team, it's pretty easy to tell the big fish. And then we're the little fish.
Well, and I was totally okay with that, and that's absolutely fine. And so but the reason I'm actually not sure if we could get a guest onto Dungeon Drunks has zero to do with the popularity of anybody's group, because I feel like everyone just wants to play D&D, and I don't think anyone would say no to joining Dungeon Drunks for a game or two because of that. The actual issue is we're at this point, like, of everybody that was there, there's only one other group that did a podcast format.
Right.
And now even they're streaming. So it would be kind of a change. Like when I explain to people that, like, oh yeah, we record, we don't do live streaming, we just record, and I do all the audio editing. They're like, wow, okay. Like, and they were all super excited about that, and they totally understood the positives to that. But that's not where a lot of these people are focused. And I don't think we're in a position to go Twitch stream.
No,
because
and
money.
Well, money a bit, and I think logistically we are not. It would be hard. I remember when we did Heroes of the Heart. That was a lot of fun, but there were lots of logistical issues of trying to put on a live streamed D&D show where nobody is in the same place.
Yeah. Well, and
I feel like we overcame a lot of those challenges. I think we delivered something that was really good as a one-time thing. Trying to engineer that consistently could be done, but there's a couple of different factors that would prevent that, at least for right now. Not the least of which is one of the reasons why some of the Dungeons & Dragons and Drunks recordings are going to sound like, hey, didn't you guys just... It sounds like you guys played yesterday. Did they just make a reference about playing yesterday? Yes, we made a reference about playing yesterday because, peek behind the curtain, we had to record a bunch of episodes so we could keep a consistent release schedule because one of our players is having a baby.
Yeah. Well, and I'll finish it with this. After doing Heroes of the Heart, I have zero doubt that if we had the correct equipment, Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks could 100% live stream and do a Twitch live stream the same way any of these groups do. But at this moment in time, we do not have the money for the equipment that we would need to make it worth it. Because Heroes of the Heart worked great, as you said, for a one-shot, because it was okay that a bunch of us were on a webcam and that some of us didn't have amazing microphones and some of us did. Like it was a little off kilter. At this point, the quality of streamed D&D games, even at the basic level, is so high, that I would only feel comfortable jumping into that arena if we could be visually competitive, and at the moment none of us have that equipment.
Well, and also, like, and I know you wanted to close out, and this is like minute 15 of the 30-minute answer, but I think, like you were saying, you put on makeup to be on these streams. One of the nice things about Dungeons and Dragons and Drunks, even though we turn on our webcams so we can see each other to kind of like play off of each other's faces while we role play and while we figure out some of these, especially some of the more emotional bits, we don't wear makeup. I show up in my gym Under Armour shirts. I mean, like, we're all very comfortable. And I think adding that layer of complexity, at least for right now, that may change. I'm always up for whatever, but at least for right now, I do treasure the fact that I could show up immediately after coming from the gym and don't give a fuck.
Yeah. I think, one, if we had all the correct equipment, we could put on a Twitch live stream, and I think you all would be fantastic. And yeah, it would be a little more work for everybody, but I have no doubt that could happen. Two, I don't think but I think right now we get to be that unique thing. We get to be the audio-only podcast. We are focused on the fact that we are essentially a D&D radio play, as it were.
We're the most digestible because we clock in at around hour and a half.
Well, and that's the other thing. We are, I've heard from lots of people that one of the pluses for them for staying with us is the fact that it's a podcast, so they can just listen to it. They don't feel like they have to watch it, and we are not 4.5 hours every single week. And while there are times where I would love to go longer, I think keeping us lean and mean and keeping us audio only is what makes us special. Now, some point in the future, if I win the lottery or if we get sponsored or whatever, and we have the money to do an actual live Twitch stream correctly, my personal opinion is that we don't bring D&D itself to do that we start a separate game. And maybe it's still me DMing and the four of you playing. Maybe it's the exact same group of people, but the Twitch stream becomes a separate game with new characters, even if it's all the same people. And I want to keep Dungeon Drunks. I feel like we're in a really good place with it. We've got most of the kinks worked out, and it's got a great formula, and we're all comfortable. And if the chance comes to do the video level, then I say we jump at it with a different campaign and go nuts. But D&D, I want to keep it audio only for the time being.
And if you want to keep your D&D in audio only, let us know. Or if you want to see the adventures of some other group led by Oboe Crazy, or here's a really funky idea, maybe not led by Oboe Crazy, where Oboe Crazy actually gets to play, let us know at Glib Shark or at each of our individual Twitters. Her at Oboe Crazy, me at Road_Block, him about to be a daddy at Jack Edithel. And Jack, if you do listen to this, congratulations. We are so happy for you. He hasn't left this show at all. That's not what's happening. He is taking a break. He will be back as soon as that's feasible. But
wait, just to make sure, you don't know something I don't know. Like, is she actually delivering right now? Does she have the baby?
No. It's
okay.
I think it's happening soon.
I know it's super happening soon, but just the way you were talking made me think, do I need to go check my phone to see if I have a text message?
So I am actually, I'm going on vacation here, and I'm probably going to be out of the country when Maggie arrives. So, so I kind of wanted to say that in case Jack heard this before then.
Oh, absolutely. And I 100% agree with everything you said. It just, for a second, I thought maybe there was an announcement I didn't know about.
No, you would probably know at or before I do.
I don't know. My phone's in the other room. Anyway, you were wrapping
up. So you heard words at the beginning of the podcast. That was voice actor Bob Ball. Then you heard some music that was done by Linnea Boyev. And from all of us here at Clip Shark, thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Thank you if you were just in the stream hanging out. And until next time, we will see ya. Bye.
Bye.